Welcome back to another Star Mini Gaming YouTube video. As always, my name is James, and I know it's been a while, but in this video I wanted to talk about the new releases of Khul and Vandus Hammerhand. Mostly going to focus on Vandus Hammerhand. My friend and co-host of Tactica Tuesdays, Paul Conti, has already done a in-depth review on Khul and gives a Khorne player's perspective on that, which I cannot give as that's not a faction I currently play. So I will link that video down below. So like I'm saying, very little of the time in this video will be spent on Khul. The majority of the time will be spent on Vandus, because the Stormcast have become my kind of secondary army within Age of Sigmar. I've begun to play with them a bit more. I've delved into them from a rules perspective quite a bit more, and so we'll hopefully pretty soon be seeing more content talking about them as a faction in depth on this channel. But anyways, that's what I'm going to be covering mostly in this video. So real quickly, Khul is basically the exact same as the generic Mighty Lord of Khorne, which was already basically representing him. If you read any of the narrative, any of the novels, then you already knew that what that box depicted was the initial combat between Vandus and Khul whenever the first realm gates open and the Stormcast come into the immortal realms outside of Azir and begin their offensive within the realm of fire. And so anyways, the Mighty Lord and Khorne model was very clearly depicting Khul. The special rules that already existed were very much in line with Khul as a character. So I do want to say that I like this kind of reverse trend. Whenever Age of Sigmar came out, we had models that used to be unique that were then genericized. And this is the first instance that I'm aware of where we are taking generic models that were created after Age of Sigmar came out and making them unique, making a unique profile for them. So first off, good on you, GW, for that. Almost everything else in this video, at least on Khul, is negative, so I want to get that out of the way. Clearly, this was a rush job by GW, and the rules reflect that. As Paul Conti states, almost everything here is a direct copy and paste. The moves characteristic, the wounds characteristic, the saves, the bravery, the Axe of Khorne profile, and Grizzlemaw just being a named Fleshhound, all that stuff is the same. None of that changes. The abilities, Reality Splitting Axe, Collar of Khorne, and the command ability Gorelord, unchanging. What's new here is the ability Akshi's Bane, which says, in each hero phase, you can pile in up to 8 inches and attack with Khul and Grizzlemaw. In addition, you can reroll all failed hit rolls for Khul and Grizzlemaw. Okay, and then we have a little bit of description added, which is, again, poorly done. And so let me explain real quick why this is poorly done. So in the description, it says Khul leads the Gore Tide and always wears their colors in battle. If you take a Gore Tide Warscroll battalion, then Khul must be taken instead of the Mighty Lord of Khorne that normally leads the battalion. If he is taken as part of any other battalion, all other Khorne mortal models in the battalion should also come from the Gore Tide. And so this is somewhat confusing because in other models we have description sections that talk about like what war gear they can have. It'll sometimes say they carry a sword and a shield, or they carry a sword or a spear, things like that, where you get to pick. In this instance, it's not really clear, is this trying to confer some kind of special ability to your army when you bring Khul to the table? Or is this more of just flavor text and telling you, hey, he leads the Gore Tide, so any models that you're bringing with Khul should probably be painted in those colors if you want to fit the narrative and truly depict this character as he's supposed to be. Personally, I believe the latter, that this is merely flavor text, but with how it's written and with the Gore Tide actually being a Warscroll battalion, this is questionable, which way it's supposed to be. Also to note, at the time of this video coming out, there are no official points released in the app. Maybe there are somewhere else. I'm unfamiliar with them. I do have it on a reliable source telling me that Khul is supposed to be 200 points, which would put him as 60 points more than a regular Mighty Lord of Khorne, which quite frankly, I don't think he's worth it, and I'll get into that right now. So his one unique ability that he has as the named version of himself, and real quick, again, before I get into that, we're going to cover what you're giving up by bringing the name version. You do not get to give him an artifact. If you bring him as your general, you do not get a commander effect. Okay? So you've already lost out on 2 potential things. Now you can still bring the artifact, you just can't give it to this guy. So that's 2 things that he loses out on when compared to a regular Mighty Lord of Khorne. But he does get Akshi's Bane, which is borderline useless. And please let me explain why. Paul Conti and many others I've seen have made the mistake of reading in what this is clearly intended to mean, but not what it actually is. And this is again where I point out how this is clearly a rush job by GW. It was not properly play tested. It was probably not even properly reviewed before it was put out. It says, in each of your hero phases, you can pile in up to 8 inches and attack with Khorgoth, Khul, and Grizzlemaw. Okay. And then it says, in addition, you can reroll all failed hit rolls for Khorgoth, Khul, and Grizzlemaw. Now, that's a new sentence. The question is, though, can you always reroll failed hit rolls for the 2 of them? Or is that only during the hero phase when you pile in? I personally think you can always, but it really should be 2 separate rules if that is the case. It's not very clear. But the big thing is the 8-inch pile-in is borderline useless on a single hero model that cannot join units. And the reason for that is you cannot pile in unless you're within combat already. And to be within combat, the rules state, and I'm going to put them up here so you can see them now, that you have to be within 3 inches of an enemy model already, or to have ended your charge within a ½ inch. So yes, there are opportunities for you to be 3 inches away from the nearest enemy model and to move to now be within 2 inches or 2.5 or whatever, anything less than 3 inches, and kind of circle around that closest model while ending your movement closer to them than you started. You can kind of pull some shenanigans there, and in those instances the 8 inches pile in is nice, but you cannot basically free charge into combat 8 inches away because you are not engaged in combat to then pile in. So if this is truly intended to be, Khorgoth Khul can in effect just pile in a free charge of 8 inches if he's within range of an enemy, then they should add the statement here that he may do that he may count as being within combat if he's within 8 inches of an enemy during your hero phase. Also note, this special pile-in only takes place during your hero phase. This is not during any hero phase, which again makes this a weaker ability. So if Khorgoth Khul is 200 points, you're paying 60 points for a slightly better pile-in and the ability to attack twice on your turn, which is good, but I'm not sure that it's worth 60 points. Especially, again, whenever you are giving up the ability to give this model an artifact, or to even take a commander effect for your army if this is your general. And his command ability is the exact same as the regular one, so I don't think he's worth 60 points more, just to make that abundantly clear. Now we go to the other newly released model, excuse me, and my inability to speak. Vandus the Hammerhand. And I do want to start off by saying I was excited for both these models to be released, like I said, as a unique version of themselves. I like Vandus and Khul actually both quite a lot from the narrative. They're interesting characters. And when I initially read through the profiles, I made the mistake of assuming intent with Khorgoth Khul's pile-in ability and making him better than he really was. And then once I looked again and realized that that was indeed not the case with how the rules were written, that he was basically a piece of garbage as currently written, and that Vandus Hammerhand I don't hold a much higher opinion of. So Vandus Hammerhand is rumored to be 280 points, which is 60 points above the regular Lord Celestin on Dracoth as well, so we're looking at a 60-point difference in each of these models. And the thing is here, we have more flavored text within the description that just says, basically Vandus Hammerhand leads the Hammerhands, and that you should field him with those. But he actually does have some differences within his basic profile. So his move, wound, save, and bravery, they're all the exact same. 10-inch move, 7 wounds, 3+ save, 9 bravery. The difference is, you know, and again, if we're looking at this when compared to strictly the build of the model that you got in the starter box, this is not comparing him to initially to the later incarnations of the Lord Celestant that has multiple weapon options. Heldenson has the difference of being an automatic 3 damage as opposed to the Tempestus Hammer's normal D3, which is an average of 2, so that you are, again, on average, like there you could have an abnormally bad roll. On average, you're dealing 1 more damage per successful hit with this than you would with the regular Tempestus. He has the special ability Heldenson, which is the same as the Tempestus Hammer already had. If you charge, you get an extra D3 attacks. You have Intolerable Damage, which is the same. You have Storm Breath, which is the same. You have Lord of the Hammer Hands. Now, this is where there's some greater difference between Vandus and a standard Lord Celestant than there is with Khorgoth's Khul and a standard Mighty Lord of Khorne. Vandus' Lord of the Hammer Hands is basically the same. It says, if Vandus Hammerhand is taken as part of a Hammers of Sigmar Warrior Chamber Battalion, then any units from the battalion that are within 24 inches of him at the start of the Battle Shock test phase do not have to take Battle Shock tests. This is basically the same as the original Lord Celestant on Dracoth's command ability. And then, as a different command ability, he has the unique ability Vengeful Determination. If Vandus Hammerhand uses this ability, then until your next hero phase, you can add 1 to the attack's characteristic of any melee weapons used by friendly Stormcast Eternal units whilst they are within 6 inches of him. And that does sound pretty good. I do want to say that I like that. The thing is, he's within 6 inches of himself, so that's pretty good. So Heldenson will really be making 4 attacks, and Kalanax, his Dracoth, will be making 5 attacks every single turn if he is your general. And then, of course, the additional D3 on the charge, and you can probably get 1 to 2 other Stormcast units reliably within 6 inches of him. Anything more than that's going to be quite difficult just because of the size of Stormcast bases. You're looking at nothing smaller than a 40 mil. So it's not going to impact a huge number of units, but it's not a terrible ability. Stormcast don't really have a whole lot of units that bring to the table command abilities anyways. So he's another decent option in that way. Will I ever take him? Probably not. And really for a couple of reasons. Number one, if he really is 60 points more, to again give up the ability to take an artifact on this unit and a commander effect, just period, is a lot to give up. I don't think that his command ability makes up for that. Now, yes, his command ability is arguably the best that any Stormcast commander has, but a command effect is a powerful tool, especially within the Stormcasts, and the wide range of artifacts that you can take. And I don't think this has been officially clarified, but you can upgrade one mount that the Stormcasts bring in your army. So, for example, you can upgrade a Stardraith, one of those Chocobos, I can't remember off the top of my head what they're called, or a Dracoth. You can pick one of them, and you can give them a free upgrade as in the same way that you would an artifact. I don't believe that you can give that to a unique character, so you also lose out on that third potential upgrade with Vandus, if I'm understanding the rules correctly. I may not be. And feel free to comment below if you think I'm wrong and any evidence that you have that's actually beyond I believe. But anyways, so you're giving up those 3 things, and you're getting Lord of the Hammerhands only if you're bringing him within a Hammers of Sigmar Warrior Chamber Battalion, which is a specific battalion. It's not cheap to run, so you don't always get that ability. And then Vengeful Determination's good, Intolerable Breath, all that other, or Intolerable Damage, Storm Breath, Heldenson, all that stuff is basically the same. But what you're giving up is just the wide range of options of being able to customize what artifact you give your commander. And then you also don't get to choose what weapon you want. Now, I do like the Tempestus Hammer. It is the weapon I bring the most often, so Heldenson being a slightly improved version of that is a plus for me. But just the fact that it takes away that customization option is a net negative, in my opinion. And so, realistically, if I were to point out Vandus Hammerhand, I would put him at no more than 240. Yes, Vengeful Determination is powerful. Yes, the ability for Lord of the Hammerhands to potentially trigger if you have the right battalion is good. For Heldenson to be a little bit stronger, yeah, that's good. So you have 3 minor buffs to the character as opposed to the standard version of it, but you're losing 2 buffs automatically in terms of buffing the Dracoth, giving him an artifact if you wanted to. You're losing the commander effect, so you're down a 3rd buff, and then you're losing the customization option of the weapon that you give him, and really losing the customization option of the huge number of artifacts that you can choose from to give him. You can upgrade his weapon, you can upgrade his armor, or you can give him just the standard artifact. So there's a lot of negatives there that I think that overall the drawbacks are too great to indicate a 60-point increase in cost, or to be worth that. But anyways, that's just my thoughts on this. As always, any kind of like unit review, unit analysis, unless I can just give you the raw math and say A is better than B on a mathematical sense, will ultimately be based upon my preferences and opinions. So please take this with that grain of salt. This is purely my recommendation as a player of Age of Sigmar. But with that, that's going to end this review, and please stay tuned for more upcoming Stormcast Age of Sigmar content. But until then, this is James,